Hi everyone, it's your instructor, Miss Twilly. Just want to make a really quick video to go over the speech outline assignment. So everybody's been sending those in and they look pretty good, and I've really enjoyed giving the feedback to you guys. Hopefully you've been looking at my feedback and using it, because that's really what I'm looking for. So even if you've already submitted your outline, this video is going to be helpful for you. So let's start with the outline, and it's over here on my computer screen. That's what I'm looking at. So you're going to start with an attention getter. So think of an attention getter as a hook for your audience. Think of it as, when you're scrolling through and you're looking for things to look for you Googled something and you're starting to read, some of the headlines. It's going to be that headline. What's going to get your audience's attention? And for those of you guys who've sent me in your outlines, those have all looked really, really great. Listener relevance link, that is going to answer the question, why should your audience care? So you're going to think about what you're talking to the audience about, and you're going to answer that question, why should they care about your service learning experience? So that's going to further kind of hook them into what you're going to tell them about. Speaker credibility, that's where you're going to introduce yourself. So think back to that attention getter. You're not going to introduce yourself and then do your attention getter. You're going to do your attention getter, do your listener relevance, and then your speaker credibility. So that's where you would introduce yourself. So I would say, my name is Lisa Twilly, and you also want to say that you are a UALR speech communications student. That furthers your credibility when we start talking about communication concepts, principles, and so forth. And I've completed 4 hours of service learning at XYZ. So mine would sound a little bit like this. Hi, my name is Lisa Twilly. I'm a Speech 1300 student, and I've completed 4 hours of service learning for the Humane Society, for example. Your thesis statement is going to be, today I'm going to tell you about my service learning. That is all it's going to say. So think about thesis statements when you're writing. Usually those are a little bit more elaborate. When you're talking to an audience, you can say things like, today I'm going to tell you about. You can use first person language. It's encouraged. And a thesis statement, what I'm listening for is I'm listening for the core of what your presentation is going to be about. So they should only be saying, today I'm going to tell you about my service learning. That's it. Some of you guys have sent in an outline, and I thought if I said good next to your thesis statement and I thought it was good enough, I'd just leave it alone. But if I said change it to today I'm going to tell you about, please listen to that comment. Preview, this is where, remember in our papers we used the language, first I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that. So your preview is where you're going to tell your audience what you're going to tell them. So first I'm going to talk to you about what I did at my service learning. Then I'm going to connect some communication concepts and a principle to my service learning. And then finally, I'm going to talk about a concept that could help me improve as a communicator, as well as an ethical implication. So listen to that, what I just said about the first, second, third. You're just going to tell your audience what you're about to tell them. Now transitions, those are super, super important. I always listen for them. And the purpose of a transition, they may seem tiny, is that it helps your audience follow along to what you're going to say. So if you think about in regular conversation, we can change subjects just like that, no big deal. But when you're listening to a presenter and that presenter changed subjects, you can lose your audience. So it's that signpost language, like this is where we're going now. So I'm looking for something as easy as moving on, or next let me tell you what I did at my service learning. A beautiful transition would be, now that I've introduced my service learning, let me tell you what I did at my service, something like that. But all I'm really looking for is moving on, or some type of signpost language that lets me know that we are changing gears now and we're going to talk about something else. So don't forget those. So now you have your body, and it gives you language to use as part of your speech. So main point 1, I completed my service at, and you're going to tell us where you completed your service. Don't forget that listener relevance link. So why should your audience care where you you completed your service learning. A simple way, a lot of folks have like put in information with those listener relevance links, and a lot of them are very good. To strengthen them, you can make it into a rhetorical question. So maybe you're talking about the number of animals that are spayed and neuter, or that need to be spayed and neuter. Wouldn't you agree that we need to spay and neuter our animals? That's a listener relevance link. Just change some of that information into a rhetorical question, and you have a strong listener relevance link. Once again, hooking in your audience, kind of perking them up. Okay, what are you going to talk to me about? So then you're going to tell the mission of your organization. So according to, now this can be tricky. So according to, if there's a website, you can say according to and give the website address. Or if it's a person, so maybe your organization, it didn't have a website. Maybe it had a brochure. Maybe it had a poster. Maybe it was just a volunteer coordinator that told you about an opportunity to volunteer. You're going to ask that person, what is the mission of this service learning? What is the purpose of what you did? And so you can say, according to Jane Doe, the mission of my organization is this, okay? And you're just going to give a few key ideas. Sometimes missions are super long, so you don't have to give us the entire mission. You can just give us the high points of that mission, okay? Then you're going to get into what you did at your service learning. So you're going to talk about the story of your service experience. What kind of people were there? So tell a story about the people that were there. What kind of place was it? Were you in the woods picking up garbage, or were you in a building sorting food at the food bank? And that sort of thing. And then that's that task. Like, what did you do? Did you take tickets? Did you sell things? Did you feed people? What exactly did you do? Then you're going to explain how your specific service helped to support the organization's mission. So you're going to tell us what the work that you did, how did it support that organization's mission? Now, if you don't have 1, 2, or 3 things, 3 different ways the work you did supports that mission, don't worry about it. At least give me one. Then don't forget your transition. So you can say, next, I'm going to tell you about communication concepts and a principle connected to my service learning. That's easy. Or you can say, moving on. I'm not very picky. I just need to hear a transition. Then you're going to say, there are 2 communication concepts and a communication principle connected to my service experience. And then once again, you're going to give another listener relevance. So another great rhetorical question, or raise your hand if you've ever done this, or that sort of thing. You can do that. You have an audience to work with. You can do that. The first communication concept is, and you're going to tell me, so remember, concepts are in your textbook. They are the pink words. They are the vocabulary words, if you will. And you have to pick a concept that is connected to your actual service learning. You cannot open up your textbook and kind of pick. You have to read through and pick concepts that you can provide connections to your service learning. So be mindful that these concepts matter, okay? Because I'm looking at these outlines and I'm saying, is that really an example of that? Is that really connected to your service learning? So don't just give me a concept and tell me what and then give me the definition, what you think it is. Don't shoehorn things into things. You're going to give me a concept that is connected to your service learning. Okay, keep that in mind because I will call it out. So you're going to identify that concept, and then you're going to say the definition according to Lane, Abigail, and Gooch, 2014, or whatever year your book is, and then you're going to give me that definition. So you are going to say in your speech the definition according to Lane, Abigail, and Gooch, 2014 is, and then you're going to tell me the definition. So then you're going to say an example from my service that illustrates this concept is. So think back to your service learning when you're sorting food at the food bank, an example of nonverbals were I could hold up a can of food and kind of make a weird look at somebody, and they'd either give me the thumbs up or thumbs down. Nonverbal. Okay? An example. My example illustrates the definition because it is nonverbal. We didn't have to talk to each other. Or maybe this person that you're working with was hearing impaired, so you had to use nonverbals, right? So this illustrates because we had to use nonverbals to communicate. Draw on your experiences, pick relevant concepts. The second communication concept is, so you're going to pick another one and you're going to do exactly what we just did with the first one. Then you're going to go to the relevant communication principles. So remember, those are in the survival guide. And those communication principles are on page, and I'm going to find them for you. Sometimes it's easier for me to scroll. Those are on page 11. So remember, these are things like communication is irreversible. Okay? So meaning communication, once something's said, you can't unsay it. You can't take it back. Or the meaning of messages is influenced by interpretation. So my worldview, where I grow up, the culture that I live in, impacts how I interpret messages. Okay? Make sure you read the full meaning of those principles and apply them correctly to your service learning. Okay? So remember, those are on page 11, and you're going to pick one. You're going to say the relevant communication principle is, and you're going to tell me, and you're going to say the definition according to the UALR Survival Guide is, and then you're going to give an example from your service that illustrates that principle. And then you're going to explain that it illustrates the principle because. So why? How does it illustrate? So make sure you're very, very explicit about that. Then you're going to provide another transition. So moving on. You can say moving on. You can say next I'm going to tell you about. However you want to do it, you have to give me signpost language. It's not just filler verbiage. You're not just saying something about your service learning. You have to let me know that we are changing gears. We're moving to the next section. Okay? I'd rather hear a clunky transition than no transition. So remember that. Then you move to main point 3. So based on my service experience, I can use communication concepts and civil ethical implications to improve my communication and help improve my community. So another listener relevance link, once again, why should your audience care? And then you are going to pick a communication concept that you could use to improve your own communication. So whatever it is, you're going to pick it. You're going to provide the definition, right? So that concepts, remember, those come from the textbook. So the definition, according to Lane, Abigail, and Gooch, 2014, is, and give me the definition. You're going to tell me why you chose that concept. So you're going to say, I chose this concept based on my service experience because something happened at your service learning that you know that you can use as communication concept because of that incident. So something happened. So your because is because of what happened at your service learning or what didn't happen at your service learning. I can use this concept to improve my communication by how is it going to change how you communicate, right? But if you implement that concept into how you communicate with others, how will it improve your communication? So give me concrete examples. Then you're going to tell me about a civil or ethical implication you could use to improve your community. So tell me which one that is. So the ethical implications, those are also in the survival guide, and those are on page 12. And so those are things like trustworthiness, concern for a community, fairness, respect, responsibility, and so forth. The definition according to the UALR Survival Guide, give the definition, and you're going to tell me why you chose this implication based on your service learning. And then you can use this implication to improve your community by what? How will this implication, how will fairness improve your community? How will you implement this into the way you communicate to improve your community? So that's what you got to tell me. This last transition is kind of tricky because we're moving into the conclusion. So an easy one for you to do is just to say in conclusion. Nothing fancy. Just say in conclusion. We're going to restate your thesis. Now remember what your thesis is. Today I'm going to tell you about my service learning. So you're going to restate that thesis. You're going to say, today I told you about my service learning. So you're going to change those into past tense. Same thing with the summarize the main points. First I told you about, then I told you about that, and then we talked about this. Okay? So those main points, you're going to first, then, and then finally. And then you're going to provide a clincher. So you had that attention getter. I've seen some really great ones. And then you're going to come full circle back to that attention getter with your clincher. Okay, so think about, I know these are outlines and it kind of goes very linear, like this is a speech, but I really want you to think about your speech as coming full circle. So you're always going to come back to that attention getter and you're going to pull us back to where you started. So if you think of really great comedians, the way that they do their sets, so they start with an opening joke, they go and they take you on a trip, and then finally, at the end of their set, they take you right back to that first joke. Now you guys have had this inside joke, and that's what makes them great. So they go full circle. So when you do your speeches, I want you to go full circle from that attention getter and then tie it up with that clincher that takes you all the way back. So any questions that you guys have, hopefully this video was helpful. If you haven't done your outline yet, please go ahead and do so. I will give you feedback. I'm happy to give you feedback. If you have any questions during this process, you can email me for faster responses. Everybody knows you can text me. My phone number is plastered everywhere on every email, everything. So please do not be afraid to text me. Just tell me who you are and what your question is, and I will respond. So no question is silly. I know some of this is confusing. So like I said, all questions are welcome. And have a great rest of the week.